What's up guys, it's Will from EDM Tips. Now today I want to go off tack a bit, and we're actually going to be speaking to an incredible music producer called Ruff Diamond. Now this guy's worked with Beyonce, Grandmaster Flash and just tens and tens of other absolutely world-class musicians, and he owns a studio and a label called SupaEarth. Now Chris has had records released on EMI, Sony, Universal, Virgin, you name it man. I mean, this guy knows his stuff, and he very kindly took the time to speak to me on behalf of you guys basically. So he's going to share some of his tips and tricks over his long career in music. So we cover his creativity and how to come up with ideas. We cover off his workflow in the studio. We cover some of the struggles that he's had in the industry and the biggest mistakes that new producers make. He's got insights that will help any music producer, and I'm honoured that he took the time to speak to me. So without further ado, let's meet Chris, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did interviewing him. Thanks for watching guys, and happy producing. Chris, how's it going?
Well, it's going good, thanks, man. How are you?
Cool, very well. And thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me and to the EDM Tips viewers.
You're very welcome.
So I see you're in SupaEarth, your amazing studio in Manchester.
Thank you, man. Yeah, this is the SupaEarth, the home of SupaEarth Records as well, which is my label. But yeah, this is the studio, yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have a chance to have a quick look around it at the end of the interview. So firstly, I'll go in wide with the big questions and then drill down into some production specifics, if that's cool. So you've worked with some huge names in the industry, such as Beyonce, Mark Morrison, Estelle, Shapeshifters, and many more, as well as having success with your own more underground music. You've obviously you've had releases on Capitol, EMI, Sony, Virgin, Universal, like all the big boys. Mate, it sounds like a dream. You must be really proud of your achievements.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, I'm very proud, very lucky to have worked and remixed, written for, played on a lot of big records and everything. I'm very lucky to have been able to do it. It's a long, hard road. You know, it starts off with a bit of talent, and it takes a lot of hard work to do it. But as far as I'm concerned, I've only just scratched the surface.
I mean, yeah, it's everyone's dream, isn't it? And it's easy to look at people who have had success and just say, oh, you know, they're lucky, or they fell into the right place at the right time. But as you just said, it's a real hard slog. So, I mean, how did you get started? I mean, what made you decide not to do whatever else it was that you would have done and focus on music and make a real go of it?
Well, for me, it was quite simple. I started playing guitar when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and it was kind of pretty obvious that I was very musical at that age, very lucky to have some immediate kind of natural talent. My mum's a pianist and stuff. And for me, there's only two things that I ever kind of wanted to do in my life, and one is being a music professional, or the other was to be a tournament golf professional, which I had absolutely no chance of doing. Right. But seriously, music's my first love. I just had a lot of belief and knew I could do it. So that brings us to today. You know, it was more about believing in yourself, and I never really kind of thought that I'd do anything different.
So I guess, you know, obviously before you were as good as you were, because no one's born really great, you must have had the right attitude to be able to take the knockbacks, take the constructive criticisms, and not take it to heart and give up, and kind of step up and improve. Do you think that's an important mindset for new producers to have?
I think it is. I mean, for me, like a lot of musicians, I started out as a musician. I did a course at School of Sound Recording in Manchester when I left school. So I learned my way around a recording studio very quickly, but then I kind of went off to do a lot of session work and everything. I mean, for me, I kind of learnt as I went along a lot of the time. You know, you think like a lot of musicians, you think, oh, I'm really great, just done this gig, it's played on this tour, that for that person on this record, and you think, you know, there is always a lot to learn, and I kind of got to a point where I thought I just have to be, you know, I want to get this gig or I want to get that gig, or I want to, you know, how come I'm not producing on that album or that, and I just thought I got to up my game, you know, and it became apparent, you know, that what you have to do is measure yourself against the very best in the game in your genres. And when I started doing that, then I really started like getting my gate, you know, rather than saying, you know, all your mates are around and having a beer or whatever and enjoying your tune. I know, great, you know, that's great to get adoration, but really you got to be critical to the point, obviously keep your confidence, but you've got to be critical to the point where you're testing yourself against the best in the game and thinking what is lacking in my record compared to theirs.
Yeah.
You know, so like Dr. Dre, for example, you know, arguably the best hip hop producer of all time, certainly one of them. You know, he has got a massive reputation for not letting a track out of the studio until it's 100% done. And you know, you see articles at Eminem, and everyone has said, like, you know, he wears you out because he just fine tunes the record so much. But you know, I don't think I've heard a bad Dr. Dre record ever in my life. So you know,
yeah. So then, results speak for themselves, really. Then
exactly. So I think the kind of the thing to remember for young producers is that there is always something to learn. You know, there is always something to learn, and I'm learning a lot off working with up and coming younger producers who might have, like, you know, a lot of them are technical wizards, you know, a lot faster because they're grown up with the latest technology and everything. You know, that I'm learning stuff off them all the time now, because everyone has got something to teach you, you know.
Yeah. So, what would you say is the biggest mistake that you see new producers make when they're trying to break into the scene?
Senior producers. The biggest mistake that a senior producer would make?
No, sorry, that new producers make.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the biggest, possibly the biggest mistake will be that I would say is that too many of them try to sound like someone else. They try to copy. Now, I think that it's important to be very aware, especially in the genres that you're working in. You know, if you're working in EDM or pop music, whatever, to be aware of what's happening. But realistically, you've got to develop your own sound. And too many people try and be like someone else. And that might work for doing, you know, kind of ghost production or whatever, or just getting your track out there and like to get something out there. But if you want to really stand out, you've got to do something different. So the one thing that I would say is be yourself, develop your own style.
And have you got any particular tips for doing that you found useful?
Well, for me, it's I've always incorporated, even though I come from like a hip hop and sampling background, I'm a musician first. So for me, it's always been putting live aspects in a track, even like in electronic tracks, you know, hip hop tracks, whatever. That has always been my touch. I play a few instruments. Guitar is my first instrument. But what I would say to people is find your own sound sets, you know, mess with your own sounds, you know, make your own presets, have your own banks, you know, develop your sound. I think that is possibly the biggest I could give.
Great. Well, I was actually going to ask, what do you think should be the most important investment in terms of hardware or software? But that idea of developing your own sound set, your own samples and presets sounds like a damn important investment of time and effort.
Massively. I think it's more important to have the plugins that, because a lot of people invest in a lot of plugins and everything, it's more important to have a few plugins that you use all the time and that shape your sound, and knowing those plugins back to front, and having, I've got a fetish about drum sounds and stuff like that. I've got millions of sounds, but when I'm looking for sounds, I know roughly where sounds are, certain types of sounds are in my library, and I have go-to spots for different tracks and stuff. I think that's sounds is definitely important. Software, possibly the main software investment is your DAW, hands down. There's no one DAW is necessarily better than the other in my experience, but what works for you, what works for your style, what works with your logic, what works with your thinking. That is the one to use. Some people feel more comfortable on Logic, but what I would say is technology is always developing. So, don't always be aware that something else might come out that might suit your way of working. But, it's never a 5-minute thing changing. I mean, personally, I've worked on most DAWs, through my career, like from Cubase, Logic, Pro Tools. I've kind of settled the last year or two. Well, the last few years I've been using Ableton to make music, and Persona Studio One to mix it, and also to track live parts as well, and vocals. But the most important thing I would say is make sure your room sound is good. It's worth investing a bit of time and space as much as you can, because a lot of people might have, their studios are in different rooms, bedrooms, whatever, but try and get a level sound in your room, and try and get some speakers that suit what you're doing and suit your space. The monitors are important, because if you can't hear what's happening, that's you got a problem to start with. So
sure. I guess it's a bit like painting with the lights turned off.
Yeah. It's a bit like doing something else with the lights off these days.
So how do you go about generating ideas when you're starting a new track? I mean, when you're faced with that blank canvas.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you pick up a guitar? Do you sing? Do you listen to samples?
Well, what I do myself is, I would say the majority of my ideas actually come possibly when I'm outside the studio. I could be literally doing anything. I could be, sitting down watching the telly, whatever, like in the pub, walking in the park, whatever. And I'll have an idea, and an idea will come to me, and I can visualize, a full arrangement of a track in my head in a couple of minutes, pretty much of how the track is going to go, certainly. And I can hear parts, and it's pinging off my head. So I just get my phone out, and I start recording those ideas into my phone. So when I get to the studio, I've got the ideas already. But that doesn't always happen for everyone else, and that doesn't always happen for me either. But ideas, and it might come because I've heard something, because I DJ as well. I might DJ in a club, and I see how two tracks fit together, and I think I could do something in the same lane or whatever. But sometimes you're working with different songwriters, and you'll find that they want to work from a beat, or they want to work from you playing a guitar. I can work different ways, but if I have an idea, I'll just pick a guitar up, and it's more about having the idea than kind of stare at. I don't never get inspiration from a blank computer screen. To be honest, sometimes a sound library might give you some inspiration. But what I would say is that whatever floats your boat, whatever gives you ideas, try and capture those ideas when you get them. So whether it's sing it into a phone, and even when you're in the studio, sing your ideas into a phone, because you could start working on a bass line and then forget what a vocal hook is. Always have, I used to use a dictaphone back in the day, but always have your phone or a voice recorder so that you can get your ideas in. And even if they sound like crap when you like sing them in, at least you know what that idea was. So so that's definitely a piece of advice I will give to anyone.
Cool. Yeah, I have to say I fully agree with the just having the iPhone with the dictaphone app on the home screen. Like, I wake up at 3 a.m. and just be like, oh, I've got this tune in my head, and just hum a few bars in.
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
there. So I can't help but notice that sweet looking MPC behind you. So I mean, what's your workflow when you've got your first ideas and you go into the studio? How do you start to work?
Well, kind of depends what I'm doing. I work on a combination of Akai MPC and Ableton Live Push for my ideas. Basically, I mean, I do actually have I've had MPCs for years. I've got a 3000 in here. You know, I've been using them for years. I love what Ableton have done with Push. It gives you a lot of those MPC options. I'm more the combo between the two for me is perfect. So I basically work that most of the time. I'll work around a sequence, an 8-bar sequence, 4-bar sequence, and I'll build from a loop, and I'll get the vibe of the loop going. You know, I mean, I'm doing a lot more disco these days. So that, you know, like sometimes a lot of those ideas come around the guitar and that kind of thing. But I mean, if I'm working on an R&B track or a hip hop track, you know, I generally switch the MPC on. I'll have an idea in my head. I'll find some sounds that work, and I'll just be off whatever, you know, whatever comes in. Sometimes the sounds will inspire you to make a part. Sometimes you look for a sound. But I totally think that get your ideas in, and if you have to change a snare, you know, as you develop a track or whatever, change the sounds, then do that. But get the idea in.
Right.
To me, it's very important to get the feel right of a track. You know, I generally play stuff in unquantized, and you know, I maybe play around a few cycles in Ableton or something, and try and get the beat in naturally, and then I'll tighten it up, you know, with Ableton grooves or whatever. MPC I work slightly differently, because you work with the groove quantize as you actually playing it in. So
Right.
you know, so that, you know, I use a note repeat quite a bit, but getting the feel of a track is very, very important to me.
Right.
Sorry,
So it's getting. So you're all about getting the idea in as quickly as possible, and then any tweaks like changing snare sounds and stuff would come after getting that initial feel.
Most of the time, I mean, not always. I mean, the thing about MPCs is I'm massive on kind of layering and tuning drums and everything. I'm really kind of like meticulous on that. So a lot of the time, because you get used to a way of working, you're working fast and you're tuning drums and stuff as you go along. But it's important to me to not just get the idea down, but get the feel right to start with. So when you put a bass line down, you're actually putting a bass line down to the feel of the beat as it's going to be in the final record, you know, or your final demo, whatever. So, you know, build in blocks, you know, make sure you try and build on solid foundations. But I think it's important not to get too lost while your ideas are still flowing, not to get too lost in all the kind of the extra production and everything that's going to come later, and, you know, all the mix tricks and filtering, reversing, all that kind of shit, you know. So sorry, can I say that on there?
You can say shit as much as you like, mate. So what in the
full interview without a little bit of rock and roll?
Well, that's it. That's music, baby. So what indicates to you that a track is finished? Because it can be, well, in my experience anyway, it can be hard to know when enough's enough, and when to just get that out before you kill it by overproducing it. Sure.
That the simple answer to that is, I found that it came with experience, but you can fast forward that experience by definitely A/B your tracks, you know. So like, let's say if you're working on something, you're trying to be like a Martin Garrix tune or a Tiesto tune or something, get Martin Garrix and Tiesto up and play them every now and then against your mix, you know. Don't like and think, right, is mine hitting in the same places? But right at the end of the mix, the honest answer to that is, obviously, isn't, if nothing is sticking out of place, that's the first rule. But the other thing is, does it feel right? To me, it's got to feel right. You know, it's got to make you move. So if that piece of music is making you move, it's got a good chance of making a dance floor move. You know, or, you know, if it's not a tune for the dance floor, that it's going to emotionally make people move. You know, so
Yeah.
You know, so that's important to me. I mean, you know, doing a final mix, a lot of it is kind of like, does that feel right? You know, it is the hi-hats hitting me in the right frequency? Am I feeling that, you know? And it's very minor by that point.
Right. And every now and again, we learn a new technique that gives us a massive jump in our skills and the quality of our music. I mean, can you remember any particular thing, you know, like it may have been you get to grips with EQ or compression that you've just thought, yes, like my tunes are now a lot better than they were before I learnt this skill?
That's a very, very good question. I think the simple answer to that is it's not actually any one thing. It's more a case of, you know, actually knowing where you want how you track it to sound in the end. That it's I'm thinking, right, why doesn't my track sound like that? And then learning what people who are doing that. So, because there's obviously different production techniques in different genres and types of track within a genre as well. So if you want to kind of like learn how to get that kind of massive epic drop with all the kind, you know, all the effects and everything, and you're thinking, I'm not quite getting there, you've got to really study what a lot of it is balancing in the mix, but what I'm trying to say is you've got to do your research, you know, and once I got into doing that, it's a lot easier nowadays, because when I started, you didn't have like YouTube to go and look at and all the rest of it. You know, you were asking people around, you know, for like tips every time you worked with someone in a studio. And, you know, I was like just, you know, getting as much knowledge as I could from everyone. But that, I think that's the thing. Always research what you're doing. And if you don't know how to get a certain effect out of a certain plugin or whatever, learn how to do it, you know. And like you know, even having produced for years, I still, you know, when I started at college, we were learning how to use tape as well as MIDI and computers and everything, you know. So but today I still, you know, I'll be up at 2 a.m. and I'll be learning a new plugin or something, and I'll be watching the YouTube videos or EDM tips or one of these you know, the or the Ableton site or something, and I'll be learning how to do it, you know, because you can never know everything, but I think it's important to focus on what makes you the best.
Great.
The best that you can be.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that. And yeah, well, we've got some great technical knowledge there from the production side of things. So I've got something that's probably a bit, I don't know, it might be sensitive. If you don't want to answer it, that's fine. But, you know, the road to success in the music industry can be incredibly challenging with the self-doubt and the knockbacks, sacrifices and all of that. If it's not too prying, would you mind sharing one of the biggest struggles you've overcome in your career? Feel free to tell me to piss off.
Well, the simple answer to that again is that there's always going to be struggles of some kind. Nothing is simple. This will bring me to the point of, like, you know, that knowing as much as you can about what you're doing. But I mean, I've had struggles in the industry where I've had to protect my brand name. You know, I've had to you get legal to with certain things and all the rest of it. But that you also have to understand that that's part of a cog of this business.
Right.
It's a difficult thing. You build the foundation of what you are, and basically, the more successful you become, the more people want a piece of that. But that shouldn't knock your confidence. That should just make you be more aware of what you have to, of how you have to build, your brand, your producer name. Protect your catalog. You have to. It's important to have the right people around you.
Right.
The first thing is if the minute you get into legal contracts for music, you need a good music lawyer. So don't kid yourself that your friend's dad who used to be in a band that might help you on it. You need someone who's expert in that area, and then you might think, well, they cost a load of money, but they cost a load of money for a good reason, because they're going to protect you. So you've got to be protective. I mean, the hardest struggle, I would say, ever for a producer, when you in the long line of trying to build success, is being consistent. Because we all know what happens. If an artist takes a year out to have a baby or something, when by the time they come back, there's God knows how many other artists there trying to take the spot. You got to consistently drop music, even more so now than ever. You've got to be very consistent, and that had always been a struggle, because there's so much that goes into being a producer and an artist and everything nowadays, that you've got to be amazing at loads of different jobs. So you just got to work hard and understand the business.
So the last question from me before we talk a bit more about SupaEarth is pinched from Tim Ferriss, actually. So thanks, Tim. If you could put one message on a billboard for all aspiring music producers to see, what would it say?
Learn your business. Learn the industry.
Great. All right.
And be the best that you can be yourself. It's very important to learn your industry. If you want to study to be a doctor, for example, you got to go through 7 years or something of university for whatever profession you're in. You've got to understand your industry. Unfortunately, we're in a time where a lot of people have this perception who want to become artists, that it's about winning talent competitions, and that's all good, and nothing wrong with talent competitions. But to have those skills and actually have a career as a music artist or any career in music, you need to learn the industry. So just like any other industry, really. So I would say learn the industry and be the best that you can be. Give yourself the best shot.
I love it. That's brilliant. Thank you.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, so thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, Chris. Really appreciate it. Can you tell us a bit more about your new label and maybe give us a sneaky peek around your studio?
Well, sure, yeah. Firstly, my new label is called SupaEarth Records. It's predominantly a new disco label, but we're going to be releasing funk records, boogie records, some disco house. I absolutely love that kind of music. I kind of come back to my funk roots, shall I say, because a lot of people know me for producing a lot of R&B and pop music and everything. But the label is going to be predominantly a disco label. Very excited about it. Got some really good support from people in that world already. Some very good music collaborations happening. And the studio here, I built this studio a couple of years ago. this is in I was based in London for years and LA for a bit, and I decided that I wanted to build something near Manchester, so I got this space. And it's basically an old station house, like an old station master's house, because it's hard to find a building that you want to build a studio, right? You know, you either find an office building or something's like a bit too commercial, like a garage or something, and whichever one you find, it's going to be a colossal amount of work to build it. So you better finding a shell of a building that's already kind of maybe halfway there, and I managed to find this place, and I thought I can turn this into a really wacky space, but it actually sounds really brilliant in here. Spent a lot of time balancing the acoustics, went a bit overboard on the old kind of spaceship look, but it works really well. People like it, you know. It's good for parties.
Are you able to give us a quick look, or is the camera?
Yeah, we'll go around the gear. I won't bore you for too long. Okay, so the Pioneer decks, lovely people at Pioneer. This is a fantastic. Obviously, you play on CDJs and stuff in the clubs and whatever, but this is an absolute great piece of kit. And the new version is great. It's the XDJ RX. So, you know, when I'm recording mix shows, stuff like that, people record live DJ mixes down there and stuff. That's a really good, great to have in the studio as well. Monitoring is JBL LSR 28Ps. There, you only really see them in the States mainly, but you know, which brings me to another thing. One of my monitors is out, so you can only get parts in the States. Anyway, getting down to the outboard. It's very much an electronic studio, but it's important to have some good channels. So I've got like the BAE 1023. It's like an Neve 1073, but with more EQ points. And BAE make amazing stuff. It's like the exact components that they made the original Neve stuff with. So you don't get all the racket and the noise that you do on some of the Neve channels. The BAE 10 DC compressor limiter. That's an awesome piece of kit. Compressor which I really like, DBX 165A. That's great for bass, and certainly it's got a really good, auto release on it. Very good if you got like a rap artist or something, and they're kind of like pulling off with different timings and stuff like that. You can get out of jail with that sometimes. Moving on, Drama monitor unit. I've got these M audios are just kind of temporary in here, but they're just for balancing kind of like, mid ends and everything. Just on a mix with Persona Studio One. I must say, it's not the most well-known DAW, but this is like amazing for mixing. Tracking, I don't use it so much for creating, although a lot of people do, but for mixing, it's just the sound that comes out of it. They've got this console shaper which emulates, a vintage consoles that you can tweak, and it's just amazing. The workflow is really good. I love it for mixing. It's got some fantastic features in it. So check that out, Persona Studio One. I have an endorsement with Akai Pro for MPCs, which I've had for a while. This is the Renaissance, the new version. I haven't got the new one in here yet, but the Renaissance is like amazing. It's a great piece of kit. Very good workflow. You can make beats in seconds with it. It's, very controllable as well. You feel like it's an instrument, so, it becomes part of you. But whatever you use, and, machine or whatever, they're all good. It's about getting the best for you out of whatever you use. Moving on, I have a Soft Tube Console 1. Now, this is a fairly new piece of kit that I've got, but it's amazing for mixing, for workflow, because I've worked in the past and had in one of my studios an SSL 4000 desk, 4000E. So it actually comes with SoftTube makes some really good plugins, as I'm sure a lot of you know out there. But this gives you the workflow, that kind of hands-on feel of a console. But you can work at like 90 miles an hour all the time, because you can just flip track to it with it. It's an amazing piece of kit. So you've got the best of both worlds, and it sounds like 99.9% like the channels that they ship, because they've got a Neve channel for it, like other stuff, and it also controls UAD plugins as well. I have a UAD card as well, which they make amazing plugins as well. So basically, the console one, I know it might look like not necessary for a lot of people because they are a few £100, but it revolutionizes your mixing, your workflow when you're mixing. So, okay, so the Ableton Push 2, I use that all the time, daily basis. It's got so much under the hood. I don't even know everything on it yet, but yeah, Ableton, very, very forward-thinking company. They're helping you revolutionize music, basically. I can't say these again are about £400 or £500, but it's money well spent if you're using something every day. It's an amazing piece of kit and integrates. Obviously, Ableton 10's out now as well, and there's more features that it integrates with. But it's like an instrument; it becomes part of you. The whole tactile muscle memory. It's amazing. So I can't say enough about that. Okay, we'll go around a little bit. A few units not on at the minute. I've got an MKS20 Roland digital electric piano, very kind of vibey Rhodes sound off that. The panning and everything, it's amazing. That the AD that I have is the Prism Titan, which is Prism. AD conversion is known as kind of like the Rolls Royce.
Yes.
And it is amazing. It's really good. Collecting dust away in the corner, although it's my baby. It's my MPC 3000. I think it's number 82 or 84 or something. I had this from new, like 1999. I bought it from Turnkey in London.
Oh yes, I know Turnkey.
Yeah. Everyone knows Turkey, yeah. So they used to sell. So you could try out all the gear in there. It's amazing. I've got various controllers, and not all the stuff's actually in here, but it's like the Keylab's very good. Arturia, their plugins actually come with their hardware. All the Keylab is great. I love their soft synths. I've got a lot of their soft synths, the V collection and stuff, which I use like all the time. So, especially great if you're doing like disco and house and stuff. I mean, Jesus, they sound like the real thing. A lot of their plugs. So, when I built this place, I kind of wanted to make it, so that everything was thought of. So I've got screens everywhere. The one thing I don't have is a console, but I don't really feel the need for it. Like for what I'm doing, if you're recording bands, you need a lot of channels. Great, but I mean, most consoles are just kind of collecting dust these days.
Nice places to rest the laptop.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the vibe of the console, but you've got to make music so fast nowadays that so. It's only the odd project that you have that budget to go in and spend forever on a mix and trying to get the settings back. Now you could be working on up to 5, 6, 7, 8 tracks a day, different stuff. So I've got a few synths, a few more synths in this corner. I love the Moog Sub Fatty. This is great. I mean, for a sub £1,000 synth, this is an amazing piece of kit. The sounds that you can get out of it's just, I mean, I use it for TalkBox. I use it a bit for monosynths, but I use it for basses all the time. I mean, there's just something about it. I even use it under plugins, like for sub basses and stuff, and you can shape the sounds very, very easily. It's definitely, for someone who wants to get like an analog synth, I think they're about 700 or quid or something. It's well worth the money, and the build of all the Moog stuff is like amazing. Bang for buck. What I loved about this Mini Nova was it's very controllable. You got a lot of great stock sounds come with it. But like 200 or quid or something, it's a lot of bang for the buck. The vocoder on it's really good, which I love. You got like repeater gate stuff like that. It's just amazing for the controls. And anyone who's into vocoder, you want to see. There's a demo with my man Teddy Riley. He does a vocoder demo on this, which is outrageous.
Have you got? Is there a video link to it that I can share?
It's on YouTube somewhere, but that inspired me to buy it. So and Teddy Riley's amazing. I know him. He's the legendary producer, but he's just so good on TalkBox and vocoder. The DS100, that's TalkBox thing, an old FM synth. I mean, you would have used to be able to pick these up for about 50 quid in Loot or something, but now you look at, and they do break a little bit because they're not the best built keyboard, but for sounds and stuff, I mean, it comes back to that whole thing. You might have one sound that you get remembered for, it could be a clav sound or a bass sound or whatever, but that one sound could come from a piece of crap old synth. I mean, I won't call this a piece of crap, but you know what I mean. It's like you could get some weird old kind of Casio synth or something. If that's what makes your tracks like that's your signature sound, you're winning because you got something that no one else has got. The Rocktron Banshee, that's the standard kind of TalkBox. I've got the Rocktron Banshee 2. I don't know. Lampo said, should we give him a little tickle?
Quality.
Sorry, bit of ropey playing there today.
I love it.
Yeah, I've got an ASR 10 and Sonic there, but to be honest, that's not even working at the moment. So, but that's a kind of legendary piece of furniture. No, they're amazing for programming. Okay, so guitars. Yeah, some of my guitars, I kind of try and keep different horses for different courses kind of thing in the studio. So this is a Blue Ridge acoustic, beautiful sounding kind of dreadnought acoustic guitar. I've got the Greg Bennett Fender Strat, Yamaha nylon string. It doesn't have any strings, so there's an old Yamaha bass there. Just bits and pieces. This is the chill out area. This is where we do our entertaining, Will.
Nice. I hope to be entertained there at some point, Chris. It looks very accommodating.
You will be entertained soon. Okay, so, that's the booth through there. So I'll take you through to the bar area. Now, this is the most important room. You can have all the gear in the world. It don't mean shit.
You don't got a bar.
This is a studio bar, baby.
I love that.
So as you can see there, it's Jack Daniels o'clock. Oh, you want the lights on?
Yeah, you won't be able to see anything.
He's fussy, isn't he, this cameraman? Bloody hell. You think he was a producer or a DJ or something? So this is the bar.
Very important.
Yeah, the light. Since New Year, I got a bit hit on the old top shelf. So the little bit of restocking because we've got a couple of things coming up, like a little bit of a label launch soiree and one or two other little moments after parties and stuff. Yeah, so basically this is the booth. Now, one thing I wanted to do, I wanted to make all the lighting kind of dimmable. You can turn lights off and on and that kind of thing. Basically, if you think about it, someone will perform better if they're feeling good, and someone will create better if they're feeling good. So I've worked in, hundreds, thousands of different studios, and sometimes they've got the best gear, but then the walls are painted like, Landlord Magnolia, and the carpet's like shit, and they've got like an SSL and all the rest of it. It's at the end of the day, you're going to make and play and perform music better if you feel good. So make your space nice. Try and keep it sounding good, looking good, feeling good. Whatever kind of floats your boat. I think it's important to have a vibe. So when I built this place, the vibe had to be right. So It's a bit like a spaceship and a bit of sci-fi and everything. I went a bit mad, but it is what it is, and everyone who records it seems to love it. So, yeah, so, Will, it's been absolutely great, man. Thank you very much for asking me to do this, and I hope that everyone out there has benefited from what we've done. And, you know, hit us up, SupaEarth.com. Hit us, baby.
If you liked this video and found it useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.